Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Anna.
And I'm Brian. Today, we're tackling a skill that determines so much of our professional and social success, the art of easy conversation. For many, the idea of walking into a room and starting a conversation is a source of intense anxiety. We want to break down the process into simple, actionable steps.
Absolutely. The first barrier to easy conversation is often internal, managing pre-conversation anxiety, that sense of dread or the fear of saying the wrong thing. We need to reframe the goal. The goal isn't to be brilliant or witty. The goal is simply to connect.
Reframing is key. Instead of viewing the conversation as a performance, view it as an exchange of curiosity. Focus on the other person, not on your internal anxiety. If you are genuinely interested in the other person, your anxiety naturally diminishes.
Before you even walk into a networking event or a new meeting, a little strategic preparation goes a long way. This isn't scripting, it's priming your mind. Think of three low-stakes, open-ended questions you can use. Questions about the environment, the event, or a recent shared news item.
Low-stakes questions are essential. Avoid anything heavy, politics, deep personal history, or finances right out of the gate. Stick to the immediate shared environment. For example, I haven't been to this venue before. Have you tried the coffee? Or, that speaker was really engaging. What was your key takeaway?
Using the shared environment is the easiest entry point. It requires no prior knowledge of the person. You are leveraging the shared context as your bridge. Once the bridge is built, you can move to deeper topics.
And physically, practice power posing or taking deep breaths for 2 minutes before entering the conversation. This physiological shift helps regulate cortisol levels and lowers your internal stress response. Conversation is a physical act, and you need to prepare your body for it.
Another foundational tip: accept awkward silences. The fear of silence is what often makes people rush and stumble over their words. A brief pause is natural. It gives both people time to process and formulate a thoughtful response. Learn to hold that space comfortably.
The silence is often only awkward in your own head. If you use it as a moment to genuinely listen and maintain eye contact, it conveys thoughtful presence, not ineptitude. It signals that you are considering what was said, rather than waiting for your turn to talk.
For the opening, embrace the compliment rule. A genuine, specific compliment about something non-personal, like their presentation, their choice of reading material, or an observation they just made. That was a great point you made in the meeting. How did you arrive at that conclusion?
Specificity elevates the compliment. It shows you are paying attention, which is the ultimate compliment in conversation. It immediately establishes that you value their thought process. Once you have the foundation set, low anxiety, simple opening questions, and a willingness to accept silence, you are ready for the exchange. We would elaborate on different types of low-stakes questions: observational, informational, comparative. We would stress the importance of body language in managing anxiety, using open postures, maintaining a relaxed jaw, and slowing down speech cadence. Conversation is a physical act, and you need to prepare your body for it. Welcome back. The foundation is set. Now we move into the core exchange, and this is entirely dependent on asking better questions. A good conversationalist doesn't talk. They skillfully prompt.
The golden rule here is moving from closed questions to open questions. Closed questions, yes, no, kill conversation instantly. Open questions invite detail, narrative, and insight.
Instead of, "Do you like working here?" Closed, ask, "What inspired you to join this company and what has kept you engaged?" Open. This invites them to tell a story about their motivation and trajectory.
Use the WH questions: what, why, how. What was the biggest challenge you faced on that project? Why did you choose that location? How did you manage the transition? These create conversational depth.
Another excellent technique is the deep dig. This involves taking a simple fact they mentioned and asking for a specific illustration. If they say, "We had a lot of challenges this quarter," you follow up with,
That sounds intense. Could you describe the biggest challenge your team faced and how you approached it?
The deep dig shows you are listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak. It tells the other person, I heard the core of your statement, and I'm interested in the underlying narrative. This builds incredible rapport.
Practice the echo question. Simply repeat the last 2 or 3 words the other person said, often with a slight upward inflection, turning it into a question. If they say, and then the whole system crashed, you respond, the whole system crashed?
The echo question is a low-effort way to prompt for elaboration without requiring you to formulate a complex new question. It makes them feel heard and encourages them to fill in the detail.
Always aim for connection, not interrogation. Structure your questions gently, avoiding rapid-fire questions that make the other person feel like they are being cross-examined. One question, followed by attentive silence, followed by a reflective response.
Introduce the bridge question. This is a question that connects something they said to something you know about them or to a topic you are interested in. You mentioned you majored in physics. How has that analytical background influenced your work in marketing? This moves the conversation into a more personalized space.
And remember the reciprocity rule. After they've answered a few questions, they will often instinctively turn the question back to you. Be prepared with a brief, honest, and equally open response that invites them back into the conversation rather than closing it down. We would analyze different categories of open-ended questions, for example, experiential, reflective, future-oriented. We would provide multiple examples of the echo question and the deep dig technique across various scenarios, social, professional, academic. We would discuss how nonverbal cues, nodding, leaning in, amplify the effect of these questioning techniques, conveying genuine interest.
Welcome back. We've talked about asking questions, but the most powerful conversational skill is active listening. Conversation isn't a monologue, it's a co-created space.
Active listening is the practice of listening not just to the words, but to the meaning, intent, and emotion behind the words. It requires full, present focus.
The most common mistake people make is listening to reply, not listening to understand. While the other person is speaking, they are already formulating their next statement, which means they are only catching snippets of what is being said.
To practice active listening, you must engage in reflective mirroring. After the other person speaks, briefly summarize or paraphrase the core of what they said to ensure you understood. So, if I'm understanding correctly, the main takeaway was that the deadline shifted due to resource constraints?
Reflective mirroring serves two purposes. It verifies your understanding, and more importantly, it makes the speaker feel profoundly heard and respected. It proves you were processing their information.
Use minimal encouragers. These are small, verbal and nonverbal cues that signal engagement without interrupting the speaker's flow. Simple sounds like, ah, I see, and gentle nodding or leaning in. These are vital for maintaining conversational rhythm.
The goal is to make the other person feel safe and comfortable enough to share more deeply. When they feel their ideas are being validated and fully understood, they open up and the conversation flows effortlessly.
Nonverbal communication is critical here. Maintain appropriate eye contact, not staring, but consistent connection. Keep an open body posture, unfolded arms, facing the speaker. These silent signals communicate trust and receptivity.
Avoid distractions. This is particularly challenging in the digital age. Put your phone away, turn it face down, and avoid glancing around the room. Divided attention kills rapport instantly. It signals that the other person is less important than what might be happening elsewhere.
When you hear an emotional component in the conversation, frustration, excitement, hesitation, acknowledge the emotion, not just the facts. If they talk about a difficult transition, you might say, that sounds incredibly stressful to manage. This validates their internal experience.
Validating emotion shows true empathy. It moves the conversation beyond data points into the realm of human connection. People remember how you made them feel far more than what you said.
So pause, summarize, use minimal encouragers, and acknowledge emotion. This holistic approach transforms passive hearing into powerful, engaging, active listening. We would contrast effective mirroring with ineffective mirroring. Example, summarizing accurately versus adding judgmental interpretation. We would detail specific vocal tones and facial expressions that convey empathy and interest during active listening. We would emphasize the psychological reward system, how making the other person feel validated actually makes the listener feel better and more connected.
Welcome back. You can ask great questions and listen actively, but conversation requires two things: flow and reciprocity. You can't just be a professional interviewer. You have to contribute.
This is where people get stuck. They are so focused on listening that they forget to share. But sharing your own experiences is what establishes connection and vulnerability. The key is to share relationally.
Sharing relationally means connecting your contribution directly back to what the other person just said. You are using their narrative as a launchpad for your own brief story, ensuring you don't hijack the conversation.
For example, if they talk about a challenging work transition, you shouldn't launch into a detailed history of your career. Instead, respond with, I can relate to that. I found the first 3 months at my last role were also incredibly demanding. Did you find that establishing boundaries helped you manage that?
Notice the technique: relate, summarize, and return. You relate your experience, you summarize it briefly, and you immediately ask a question that returns the focus back to them. Your contribution serves the conversation, not your ego.
Master the segue, the smooth transition between topics. Segues often use transitional phrases, that reminds me of, or on a related note, or that's interesting, speaking of X. This avoids the abrupt change that makes the conversation feel jarring.
The best conversations move in gentle loops, not sharp lines. You circle back to previous topics, referencing things the other person said earlier. Earlier, you mentioned your work on Project Z. How does this new challenge tie into that original goal?
Another powerful tool is the hypothetical pivot. If the conversation starts to stall or you sense the need to change the mood, introduce a low-stakes hypothetical question. If you could snap your fingers and change one thing about our industry, what would it be?
Hypotheticals are safe because they involve no personal risk, yet they often generate high-level, thoughtful responses. They move the conversation out of the past and into the future, creating shared, imaginative territory.
Understand the 80-20 rule of sharing. Generally, aim for the other person to be speaking about 60 to 80% of the time, especially if you are seeking information or building rapport. Your job is to prompt and reflect, not to dominate.
And remember to vary your pitch and pace. Monotony kills engagement. Use vocal enthusiasm to match the emotional tone of the discussion. If they are talking about something exciting, your voice should reflect curiosity and interest.
Welcome back. Not all conversations flow easily. We need strategies for managing difficulties, dealing with sensitive topics, navigating disagreement, and handling conversational blockages.
First, the art of the graceful dodge. If a conversation veers into territory you are uncomfortable with, gossip, extreme politics, or sensitive personal matters, you need a polite escape route. A simple professional pivot works best.
You can dodge by acknowledging the topic and immediately redirecting to a safer one. That's a complex issue, and I know everyone has strong feelings on it. Speaking of complexity, what are your thoughts on the new company policy rollout?
If disagreement arises, practice validating the person, not the opinion. You can acknowledge their right to their viewpoint without agreeing with it. I appreciate you sharing your perspective, and I see why you feel that way. It's certainly a complex issue. This maintains rapport while avoiding conflict.
The key to avoiding conflict is recognizing that conversation is often about exploration, not conversion. Your goal is not to change their mind, it's to understand their perspective. Adopt a stance of anthropological curiosity.
Dealing with a conversational blocker, someone who only gives one-word answers, requires persistence in creativity. Revert immediately back to the WH questions and the deep dig. If they say the meeting was fine, you ask, what was the most interesting takeaway from the meeting? Or how could the next one be improved?
If that fails, it's time for a graceful exit. Don't drag out a dead conversation. A skillful conversationalist knows how to end a conversation well.
The graceful exit should happen while the conversation is still moderately enjoyable, leaving a positive impression. Use clear language. I really enjoyed this conversation, but I need to go get another drink or catch up with a colleague or prepare for the next session.
Always end with a forward action. If appropriate, suggest a follow-up. I'd love to continue this discussion. Should I circle back with you next week? Or let's exchange cards. I'll send you that article we discussed.
The forward action institutionalizes the connection and validates the time spent. It turns a casual conversation into a potentially valuable professional contact.
And your final move is the summarizing compliment, and with a brief statement reflecting appreciation for their contribution. Thank you for the insightful perspective. I really valued your thoughts on the market shift.
We would provide additional script for dodging sensitive questions, including salary or highly personal matters. We would detail the psychology of conflict avoidance in communication and how validating the other person's emotion disarms defensive reactions. We would provide several distinct, polite scripts for the graceful exit in different contexts: phone, social event, or professional meeting.
Welcome back. We've covered the tactics, questions, listening, sharing, and exits. The final step is understanding the long game, practice, and mindset.
Conversational fluency is a muscle. It degrades without regular use. You must seek out opportunities for practice. Don't wait for the high-stakes networking event. Practice in low-stakes environments like the grocery checkout line, the bank, or with casual colleagues.
Start with the simplest conversational openers in those low-stakes environments. Ask the cashier how their day is going. Ask a colleague about their weekend plans. These micro-interactions build confidence and vocal dexterity.
Practice self-compassion. You will stumble, you will say the wrong thing, and you will have awkward silences. Accept that conversation is inherently imperfect. If you make a mistake, acknowledge it internally, move on, and do better next time. Don't let a single awkward moment define your entire identity.
Record and reflect. After a major conversation, spend 5 minutes reflecting on what went well and what you could improve. Did you ask too many closed questions? Did you dominate the conversation? Did you use enough minimal encouragers? Use that data constructively.
Vary your conversational diet. Don't always talk about the same topics with the same people. Expose yourself to new ideas, new people, and new environments. This broadens your base of knowledge, giving you more to contribute and more topics for bridge questions.
And adopt the mindset of a facilitator. Your job is to make the other person look and feel good. If they walk away from the conversation feeling validated, heard, and engaged, you have succeeded.